Over to you, Tullis.
Right, okay. Just another big warm welcome to everybody. We've been away for a little while, but we're back. This is our 9th one here, webinar here at Stallion AI, and obviously the one with some of those next door, it's our 11th. So we've got a huge crowd of you tonight. I think there's over 550 people signed up, so I really appreciate you tuning into us. I hope you love it as much as all we do, and I hope the technology stays with us. Just to start with tonight, we've got Bart called back by popular demand. Bart's worked with shock and mowers. I can't remember how many years now, but he knows more about stallions than just about anybody. He's got 50, 60 stallions he collects off. He collects off about 30 or 40 a day. So if you've got any questions, please ask them as we go along. But it's great to have him on the sidelines. And that's from Germany. We're going all the way the other side of the world tonight. We're going to Brazil. And we've got Marco. I've known Marco for many years, and if there's a guy that's pioneering and really bringing stuff to the forefront of AI and technologies and extender, this is the guy. They invest an awful lot in Brazil in new technologies, and we're into our technologies here, so it's going to be great to have him on board tonight as well to give his input. As always, we've got Faye in the background. Come on, Faye. Faye's going to ask the questions tonight, so get those questions coming on the Q&As and we can ask them as going along. We've got a couple of poll questions tonight, so it'd be great if you can interact with them. We can't run these webinars without sponsors. It costs quite a lot to put on these webinars each time, and the British Breeding are so good behind the scenes, and Rachel and her team. So tonight we're really privileged to have Nidacom as our sponsors for the webinar. Nidacom was founded in 96, nearly 25 years ago, and started off with products from the human side and then expanded into the equine and bovine side using colloids. What is a colloid? We're going to learn all about it tonight. They collaborate with Boto Pharma on a range of extenders. So tonight it's all about the subfertile stallion. And it's really how we can try and, if there is a stallion with slightly subfertility, what can we do? What's the difference can we do? Just going back, actually, I forgot to add in, tonight Nidacom are giving away a prize, a really good prize, and you've got to be here till the end, so don't try and sneak off halfway through. If you want to win the prize, you've got to be here right to the end. They're giving 50% off any order through them up to £1,000. I've got all our lot, hopefully going to try and get that prize, because I want that prize too. Also, you see, it's awesome. The glass sperm worth over £100 they're giving away. It is pretty cool, this glass sperm. We've got hats that we'll show you later. We've got some honey and bags. So there's a whole collection of stuff from Nidacom. So what's on tonight? Yes, as I said, it's all about the subfertile stallion. It's all about subfertile stallion management, because it just doesn't happen in the lab. It actually starts off in the breeding sheds and the stables and how they're looked after and so on. All about the pre-breeding health checks, collection methods, processing the semen from that subfertile stallion in the lab, and that's where Nidacom and their products can really come in. And for the first time ever, and actually all our ones, I don't know why I didn't do this before, we've got 2 case studies right at the end. These are actual stallions that came in with an issue and we solved them, and that's hopefully we can try and show today. There's hopefully a lot of people logging on, and they may or may not have a problem. It might, it's not just about subfertile stallions. It's how we can actually improve the quality of your stallion anyway. So it's tips and tricks right the way through. Just one quick shout out. A good friend of mine, Dave Footer, he's looking for a Yorton Farm stud. He's looking for a new graduate vet to go in line and work behind their current vet that they've got there. So anybody who's interested in that position, send us an email and we'll give you his details. The next webinar we're doing is in a month's time, just for dates for your diary. It's the 26th of November, and it's all about semen assessment. Now, we've covered so many different topics, but semen assessment, if you can collect it, you can freeze it, but if you can't assess the semen, there's no point sort of carrying on that side, because it's never going to be a good product. So we're going to show you how to analyze semen, and also what is the optimal semen dose for a fresh, chilled and frozen. Really, really important stuff, whether you're a stallion owner, and obviously if you're a mare owner, are you getting the right amount to put in your mare? So that should be a good one, and that's on the 26th of November at 7 o'clock. As always, and I just saw it coming up, we've raised over £2,000 for charity. We don't obviously charge anything for these nights that are on. So please, if you can just put your hands in your pocket, you'll have an email at the end of it from Rachel. And all this money goes to the Horse Trust. A Horse Trust looks after rescued horses and ponies. And obviously, it's a very worthwhile cause. And really, we couldn't do anything without the British Breeding tonight. They put these on. So a big thank you to them. So let's can I pass you that fade for a second to get rid of that. So let's start off, and we're going to start in the barn. Just have 5-10 minutes up here because we're going to start. Obviously, it's all about the subfertile stallion. The problem is, at the moment, we haven't got any subfertile stallions in here, but we are. Well, obviously, maybe Josh. I don't know. but obviously got Josh's stallion here. We picked it because his stallion actually has amazing semen, it really does, and it's always a bit of a worry. Which stallion do we go and see? Because everyone's, but his stallion's got really good semen. What's the name of your guy? The Clips. Yeah. This is our celebrity hero as well. He's got 36 million views on Facebook now when I'm collecting off stallions. So if you come in here, Etienne. So I don't know about you, Bart, but if somebody comes to you for say they've got an issue with a subfertile stallion, do you think it's important to obviously just look at the semen, or have you got to look at the stallion as well?
No, we always look at the stallions. Always, we do. We look at the stallion. Okay, I am in the good position. I get the stallions young, and I can manage them from 2 till we need them for breeding. But then we check them, and then we can start to breed. But first, we check the stallions by themselves, how they look. Then we look at the behavior in the stable or in the field, in the paddocks, and how much they work, if they have to work a lot or not. And then we look at the testicles and how they look from the collar, from if they feel fine and everything. So we look at a lot of things before we start for collecting already.
Yeah, I think
to make our mind.
Yeah, because when you're asked to do that, if you suddenly see, I mean, this stallion's in obviously the peak condition and he's looking well, but you can quite often, a stallion's looking lean or not looking so good, you can pick out that. One of the things that I always look for, obviously, I know it says, is as soon as the stallion comes on our place, I literally walk around the stallion just to look at the conformation of the stallion, see if there's any weak places, because obviously jumping on a mare or jumping on a dummy, it takes a physical side to it. And that's one thing we're going to talk about. Subfertility is not just about semen quality. It's the inability to mount a mare, inability to mount a dummy, inability to ejaculate. We've got to look at that. So, I mean, the powerhouse for this is obviously the testicles. And I don't know about you, and Marco, but one thing I always find is we palpate the testicles, and this really tells you, I find straight away, it should give you a good indication. What, Marco, do you look for in the testicles if you're palpating them?
Thank you, Tullis, for the opportunity to be here, firstly.
That's all right.
I really enjoy your webinars. It's an honor for me to be here, okay?
That's great to have you all the way from Brazil.
Thank you for the association to organize this night webinar. But okay, the first thing that I look for the stallion, talking the two, is the testicle. You know, when I see the stallion, I go straight and look to the testicle, but I have to look the body score, and I have to look the muscles, how is it, and if he's okay, and his behavior, if he's stressed, he's okay. But it's important, the testicle, I think it's important to look the size of the testicle, and if the testicle is the consistency of the testicle also, and also the position of the testicle. Okay, the testicle is in a good position. If the stallion is relaxed, it's okay, but if it's not relaxed, could be more retracted, you know. But I look for the testicle, how soft is the testicle, the size. But the first thing that I look is the position of the testicle. Okay, this is the first thing that I look.
Yeah. So I mean, because I quite agree on that side. You're dead right. The first thing I see a stallion coming in, I look over him, and you're right. And it's obviously always got to be careful touching these stallions, but most of them will let you, and you just literally, like Marco was saying, is literally palpate them. And quite often we found one testicle will be slightly softer than the other. But if they're really spongy and soft, it doesn't, that is not a good sign. They want to be hard. And one thing I want to pick up on Marco, which I think is the biggest thing to a subfertile stallion, and you said it then, is stress. I think stress, I believe, is one of the big, and it's the most underestimated thing. People don't realise how stress has an effect on the subfertile stallion. Was there a question there?
Yes, we've got a couple. So Kate,
see, yeah, go on.
Kate said, what percentage of stallions would you say may have issues with being subfertile, either in terms of semen quality or behaviour, libido issues?
Oh God, what percentage of stallions are subfertile? I'm afraid that's a big open question to me, and you lot might, Marco and Bart might say something different. To me, it's a huge question, because on a young stallion, obviously, if they're not sexually mature, if they're 2-year-old, it might be just a mature issue. It might not be a subfertile issue. If it's a breed, some breeds take longer to mature. Some of the heavier breeds, they don't reach their sexual maturity to age 4 and 5, where some of the native, other sort of like the Welsh cobs, they reach their maturity, some of them at the age of 2 and 3. So it's varied. So if you would look, yes, there may be 10% or 5 or 10% are at the top, maybe on the borderline of it, but generally most aren't. But going back to, we're going to talk about measuring testicles. I don't know what any of you think of these. These are calipers, and they can use for measuring testicles. We just brought these out. I must admit, I don't know whether Marco, you use these, or Bart, but I don't find them the best things really, because ultrasound is one of the better ways. But do you think these are okay? Do you use much of these, Marco, or not, or Bart?
I use my hands.
Yeah.
I use my hand also, but I have to say that's a good caliper, because I did my PhD at Colorado State University, and they use a lot of this, and they develop this at Squires. But I don't use that because I feel myself more safer using my hand.
Yeah, you're right. The only time I do use this,
it depends on the stallion. Sometimes,
if the only time I have used this, if you have a stallion with a swollen penis, you can actually go in and measure the penis. Just say you have one, we had one a while ago, and you can actually start measuring the swelling. If there is anything like that, I mean, it's very, very, very rare that it happens. But for actually measuring testicles, yeah, I agree. They're what's that noise out there?
could be dangerous.
Borage harvester.
What?
Borage harvester.
A borage harvester. Right. Okay. So we better move on. I know it's all quite, but that's basically the stallion. We've got so much to cover tonight. There really is so much. So we're going to move on without delay. So, right. I'm just gonna, right, Josh. Can I'll give you those calipers. I don't know what you're going to do with them, but. Yeah, it's just a couple of things before we go into the breeding shed. One of the main things that we like to do, and we've got one stallion in here at the moment, is we do find that putting the stallions under light. Have you turned off the fans? So it's something we've learned. Oh, is that better? Yeah. Is that we actually put the stallions under lights, especially the older stallions. I think it's so important for those stallions that have difficult problems in collecting off, and especially the older stallions and ones that might tie up a little bit. Putting under lights, going on the walk. I know, Bart, in Germany, that you put all your stallions on a treadmill beforehand. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I do, especially in the cold time of the year, always for 20 minutes, just to protect the stallions' attendance and everything.
Yeah.
And what I'm starting to do now with the few stallions who are really hot or are really lazy and have a bad libido, I start with the Bema blankets after the walker, and that makes the blood going better. So that's similar like the light, but then I just put this blanket from the Bema company on, and it looks like I'm doing some tests now. So. But since 2 months, and I think it looks like that it works really positive on the mood and the way they like to breathe. So
that's I mean, interesting. I'll be really, really interested about that, because I'm learning all the time for this. We've done this for years, but we're still learning. And one mistake I made was thinking you could bring a stallion straight out of a stable and expect him to be collected from. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stallions can do that. But you suddenly find that they're using muscles they're not supposed to be using, or don't use so much, and they tie up. So we put them all on the walker for half an hour beforehand, but some of the old ones don't really like going around in circles, so we actually put them on here and give them a massage. Anyway, we better move on. Is there a question as we can go?
Yeah, so what do you class as an older stallion from Estelle?
So the question was, is what do we class as an older stallion? Marco, I don't know. I would say, you know, when they get into their late teens, they're going through something called testicular degeneration, some of these stallions. And yes, their testicles aren't, but they can go on anything from their late teens into their 20s. What would you think, Marco? What would you class as an old stallion?
Yeah, it's the same situation in mares, more than 18 years.
Oh, just got to stop here. Look at this little chap here.
But I have stallions with 20 years that look like young guys, you know. But
yeah.
Yes,
you're right.
there's a big variation between stallions, no?
Yeah, huge variance. So you can just see some of these are some of the boys that we got in here at the moment. We have everything in here from a little section A through to Jetem, and we've got a real mixture in here. We might just lose connection ever so slightly while we flick over to the in-house Wi-Fi.
I've got another question.
Go on, let's go with the question. Yep.
From your friend Juan Sampa.
Oh, Juan Sampa's on.
Yeah. How do you determine that the stallion is stressed?
How do you determine the stallion is stressed? Hang on, yeah. Well, as you can tell, are we still there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. As you can tell, Juan, I've had a very stressful life because I haven't got much hair left, so I've been quite stressful. Now, basically we have cameras in all the boxes, and sometimes Juan, I don't know whether he was meaning this, but sometimes you can't tell a stallion stress. So sometimes when they go to a show or come back from a show, we had one particular stallion. If he went away to a show and came back, his semen was no good for 2 weeks, and we had to flush out. Other stallions, it's very visible. If they're box walking, if they're stressed out in the stable, and that's why we have cameras in all the boxes, because we can actually see the stallions stressed in the box, the way they're box walking, they're restless, they're not calm. So yes, sometimes you can't see the stress levels, sometimes you can. So yeah.
Yeah, but can I say something?
Yeah, go for it, Bart. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so hello, Juan. I hope you're fine in your quarantine place. So we talk about this, and we found out, and we have to make statistic about this, but now through the Corona time, we have no shows at all. And my stallions, a lot of my stallions are doing during the breeding seasons, a lot of shows. And this year there were no shows. And this year we had much better quality, much more semen. So the show jumping and the shows are really a big stress for the horse, more than we see.
I think you've obviously seen that. We've seen that, but not really seen it on a bigger scale as you. And we think, oh yeah, it's just that one stallion. But you're right, and you don't realise how it affects one stallion and it won't affect another one. I think, but you're right. I think on some stallions it affects an awful lot. So that we're in the breeding shed now. We're not going to collect off a stallion today because we just haven't got time. But there's a lot in the breeding shed of trying to calm a stallion down and obviously collect off them and to try and get the best quality semen. One of the main things I think I always say with the collecting off these stallions is if you can get the stallion first time, you're always going to get the best quality semen. Every jump you do, the stallion starts to introduce more seminal fluids in with that ejaculate, and the semen is never as good. So whatever method you use to collect off these stallions, it wants to be trying to do it on the first jump. So if it's on a dummy mare, if it's on a teaser mare, or it's a natural covering, it's trying to encourage that and tease that stallion up enough to be able to get it on that first jump. So, and we just have some of you may have seen this is our teaser board. We scrubbed it out all the names of the stallions, but down here we have a list of all the stallions we're collecting off at the moment. So you can see these all go on the dummy mare. Got one goes on the teaser mare there, but they're all pretty much on the dummy. And then we have on here, just so we can keep an eye on the stallions, what height the dummy's got to be, and if they need a pusher, and what their libido is. So we just score it 1 to 5, libido being 5 being like very, very keen. 4 of these are quite keen. And you've got one down here that's 2 that's obviously very this one's a good boy for some reason. He obviously is good to collect from. So, and we find some stallions. I don't know whether I haven't seen you do this, Bart, much, I must admit, but we collect some stallions we find are weaker on one side than the other. So some we collect on the off side and some we collect on the near side. When we collect off, and we just try and find out what they're comfortable in collecting. But on that, right, come on into the.
And can you just confirm what you mean by pusher as well?
Pusher. We sometimes, if a stallion leans, and I know, Bart, you don't do too much of this, but we can give them a bit of assistance and actually just push onto the stallion so they don't come round too much. That's all it is. Yeah. Sorry, Bart, you were going to say something?
No, I only want to say that I have even a few stallions who I collect today left, the next time right, and change all the time, that they go, because the riders like this more, that they stay straight in the back. Okay, I don't know if it's working.
So you collect on either side.
Not all, but a few.
You're right, because we have some as well, and I think when you're in the breeding shed, you absolutely. I mean, obviously, you know what you're talking about, but collecting. We have some that we collect on every other side, because I don't think some people realise how physical it can be for certain stallions, and they might be slightly weak. It always shows out if they have any weaknesses in their back end, one way or the other. And yes, collecting on the near side or the off side, we find out really where their strengths are. Yeah. But did you have anything to say on that, Marco?
No, we don't used to change too much the things with the stallion. We used to do the same thing always. Sometimes when you change the side, could be crazy for the horse, We used to keep what they like to do. If they like the right, we do the right. If they like the left, we do the left. But
exactly.
some of them,
that's it. So
because United States, they used to do the left side. In Brazil, they used to do the right. In Germany, the right. And then depends of the stallion. But we don't used to change. I don't like to change.
Yeah, it's in France. They I think they do it on the left. I think. Well, it's a bit like which side of the road they drive the car on. I think it's whatever people. It's a bit accents. But on here we've got all the AVs. So and again, it does come back. You want to try and get that stallion to collect first time. So we have a different section, a selection of AVs. We have a small one. The other thing that I always think is really important is to get the best quality semen on some of these stallions is we do want the penis to be protruding out the end or close to the end of the AV. These AVs are quite hot. If they ejaculate halfway down these AVs, we can be burning the semen or the semen's not such good quality. So I think it's really important trying to get an AV they like and they enjoy to use. I think there's always, every time we speak to different veterinarians from Marco to Bart to Dixon, whoever, and everyone seems to have a bit of a favourite on which AV they prefer. And I think that's all over the place. We have got one here, Marco.
Thank you.
All of them. But so I think
a Brazilian one.
A Brazilian, yes. And this is a bit like the German one, the Hanover one. This is one that the Bart uses. But one little tip that we do on quite a few stallions now, let's say now, not quite a few, but we do it on maybe 5 or 10%. We do an open-ended AV where we cut the end of the Missouri AV off. And we're going to see a video later on this. And we actually collect the first 2 pulses of that stallion with this. And we find on some stallions for freezing, it can make such a difference. And there's some heavy horses out there that their seminal plasma has a toxicity effect in with the semen. So we do find it can make a big difference collecting the different fractions with it. It's quite tricky sometimes. So it's a fractionated sample. I remember, I think it was one of your presentations, Marco. They were they were snipping some ends and trying to blank off, I think, the fractions they come out with a glove or something, if I remember. I think the other thing we've got to look at is the gel fraction. Some people filter the semen after. It's really important to try and filter the semen as that stallion ejaculates. And you can have these sort of milk filters, as you can see here, and also mini tube. something I've been learning is I'd like to do a bit more research in it. I think some stallions produce gel, but it's very, very thin. And it actually goes through here. And we think there's actually no gel in there, but there is sometimes. So on some stallions, not all, but on some of them, we use the mini tube filters. They are quite expensive. So again, maybe about 5% or 10% stallions, we will use this to stop any gel from getting through. When we're sectioning the semen again, we use this device as well to try and make it as clean as possible. But most of the time, we just use these filters. Bart, you use these all the time, don't you?
I only use this once, yeah.
And the other thing that we do here is, we get it out. There's all some of these stallions have, the seminal fluids can have a toxicity effect. So on some stallions, we actually get some extender, 20 mils, and we put it in the bottle and we just put that in there, 20 mils. So when the stallion ejaculates, and actually we do this with a lot of the frozen stallions, because we find some it makes no difference at all, and some it can make a big difference. I think you've used this on a few stallions, haven't you, Bart?
Yeah, a lot. With freezing quite a lot. And also if some people, sometimes they ask me, they have problem with some semen. That's the first thing I say. Try, before you do anything else, try to give 20, 30 ml of extender in the bottle before collection.
Yeah.
Because then most of the time the semen is already much, much better.
Yeah, I think it's I like it a lot. And whenever we're dealing with...
But it's very important when you do that to pay attention with the temperature, you know. Because sometimes it takes too long to collect the semen, everything stays cold.
But Marco, I get from somebody from Brazil some small tubes. Yes, they travel a long time till if I order, they need a long time to come.
Yes.
But this bottle, I always have it 37 degrees, and then it's very fine. It's super. Thank you. Still.
But for people that don't have this bottle, they have to pay attention to the temperature, because sometimes it takes a long time, and the room is cold sometimes, and everything stays cold, and you have to pay attention.
You're actually right, Mark. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is we do it automatically, and it's when we're going to the breeding shed, it's the last thing we do. We literally squirt it in, and then we put a cover over the top to keep it warm. But you're right, this only works because if you're moving around for 20 minutes and this gets cold and the stallion ejaculates on it, you're absolutely spot on. It's going to have a negative effect. But I think we just have it as the last thing it goes in, and you can virtually do it just before the stallion jumps on. We find, so we put a little bit of hole in there as well. And I think we've got a question coming. The other thing with the hole, just one more thing that you might not know about. I don't know what you don't most probably use the Missouri, Marco or Bart, but the hole that we put in here, it stops the semen from backing up because it doesn't cause a vacuum when we put it on the Missouri AV. So again, it lets the semen come through, so it filters much quicker rather than backing up. So we find this hole that's two things. One, you can put extender in there, and one you can, And I think we've got a few people in New Zealand. I think Debbie said her friend tonight's watching. So if you're watching New Zealand, thanks very much for tuning in. It must be about sort of 4 o'clock in the morning for you over there. Faye, was there a question?
Yes, we've got a few questions. We've got one from Aurelie. She says, how do you explain that the semen looks better when you add extender in the collection bottle?
Right, Aurelie. Hi, Aurelie. Yes, so basically what it does is the stallion ejaculates in a few different fractions. You get pre-ejaculatory fluid, you get the sperm-rich fraction, you get this gel. But in the sperm-rich fraction, it's in the seminal fluids. And sometimes these seminal fluids can have a negative effect on the semen. So if we dilute it straight away in an extender, because you've got to imagine this is not in the mare, it's not in the stallion, so it's open to all the elements that we're throwing at it. So it needs a buffer or an extender or something to protect it. So we can inject it into that. It's got proteins, antibiotics, glucose and sugars and things like that. So these can really help protect the semen. So that's why. Right.
Yeah, and just another quick one.
It's been a long session tonight, I can see.
How and when do you use the filters that you were talking about before? So we just want to recap.
Somebody wanted to ask about how and when do we use the filters. So we always use the filters on every collection. Just with some, if we see a bit of gel coming through, these filters don't work. Sometimes we can put 2 filters in here, or we can use these really fine ones, but always do it before, it's called an inline filter. Would you agree, Marco? Would you filter it afterwards or during the ejaculate?
I have a different system because we have in Brazil several styles with a lot of gel. Then we prefer to filter after, straight after.
But that's
then everything is under control, because sometimes the semen stays inside of the EV and it takes a long time to come to the bottle. Then we decide just to collect straight in the bottle, then filter after.
Yeah, your stallions out there, it's all gel's quite often linked to testosterone. I think your stallions must be more testosterone filled stallions.
Could be a problem of management, I don't know, but some of them, they have a lot of I already compared, there is no problem to filter 10 minutes after the collection or during the collection, but then we decide to filter just after.
And that's the whole thing when we're talking, you do things slightly differently, and it's important to learn. The other thing is the gel, the lube, just before we go into there, because we're running over. I've seen we tend to, I think Bart hardly used any gel, but we usually use, the other biggest mistake people use is they use a great big bit of gel. We literally use barely, in England, it's a 5p piece. So it'd be barely 5 mils. It's a tiny amount. I've seen so many people do that. That's the first thing when I go into retail, they say, see how much gel they use. All this gel is going to get pushed down the AV and then contaminate your sample. So if you can get away with using as little gel as possible. Okay.
But I don't need to glue because I always use a liner.
Yeah.
And there you have a few drops of pre-oculation, and in this liner it's enough.
Yes. It's the same in Brazil. Because we use liner, you don't use the lube anymore.
Exactly.
Because there is a paper from one sample that's seen here now, saying that, showing that's very dangerous. Sometimes some kinds of gels, but we decide just to avoid to use. Don't use anymore. If you use a plastic liner.
Yeah, and so and there are all different types of gel out there. I mean, there was a bit of research saying that actually KY is not the best one to use. The Thorough gel is meant to be very good. So it's important. We even had one client said we should be using this gel, but they said it works on their Stallion, but I don't think that's true. And you can actually use horse condoms. And believe it or not, you can even use human condoms. We've used this on Stallions, on some very, very tricky ones, and they can also work. So, so that's, I think, enough said in here, because, well, don't fall over, but Etienne. We're going to the lab now, and we've got just see we're going to run so far over tonight. We're not careful, but there's so much to talk about in the lab and everything. So just before we sort of go much further, I just got to put my hat on. Just thank Nidicom for the hat tonight. Really appreciate that. And a thank them. And tonight's prize, I mean, look at this. This is a glass sperm. Sorry? Don't drop it. So there's a whole heap. And we've got to thank the Nidicom for sponsoring all this tonight. And I think that now there's going to be a 3-minute video on Marco just explaining about his goods. So Rachel, can you put the video on for us, please? That'd be great.
Thank you, the British Breeding Association, for the opportunity to be here. Talking about me, I'm a professor for São Paulo State University in Brazil. In my group, we're working with several tools trying to protect the stallion sperm against the damage that can happen during the several procedures that we use routinely. I'm working with Nidicom, there is more 10 years, trying to figure out the best ways to use Equipure, basically, that I consider one of the best things that you have in your hands to improve the fertility of the semen that we are going to process. It's amazing how you can improve the fertility. Sometimes you can have the double or the triple of the pregnancy rate using Equipure. One thing that's important with Equipure is to know how Equipure works. Equipure eliminate the bad cells, you are protecting the good one. They release factors that can damage the membrane and DNA and the DNA of the good cells. It's interesting also that you can use a very low dose passing through Equipure. You can use just 50 million sperm and have a good pregnancy rates. People is using a lot in Brazil and South America. A system that we developed and we published this experiment showing that passing through Equipure and resuspended with Botucrio. Botucrio is extended that we developed in Brazil several years ago. That's considered the best one to freeze semen. And more than 95% people are using Botucrio in Brazil to freeze semen. And for thousands of stallions, in the United States also is the leader for freeze semen. It's a very good extended. If you have a good centrifuge with a swing quarter and can give you the exact G-force, you are going to have a good result. Sometimes you have to increase the G-force or increase the time, but it's very important to having a good centrifuge machine. We have also other tools that you can use that are available to NIDACOM. Another tool that's interesting is the Botucrio Gold. Botucrio Gold is extended. It's the only extended in the world that has casein in cholesterol. It's the one that really protects the sperm because of these two things. Don't have time to explain you, but I can guarantee you that if you use this extended to cool, we are going to have much better results. Other tools that we have available, red cushion, that's a solution that protects the sperm during the centrifugation. You can use a high-speed centrifugation to have more sperms. Why is red? Because being red is much easier to see the column of semen. The other cushion that are available on the market, they are amber, then they lost some sperms. And other tool that we have also is the sperm filter. Sperm filter is a system that you don't need to use the centrifuge machine. Then, finally, I'd like to say that you have in your hands in Europe, through NIDACOM, several tools that can help you to have better results manipulating the semen of your stallions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, right, so thank you, Marco, for that. And I have to admit, we've been working with NIDACOM and Anna from there for I don't know, a long, long time. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsoring tonight. For a company in Sweden, I think it is that right, Marco, Sweden? Their delivery is just brilliant. You literally, the Royal Mail don't deliver as quick as them in our own country sometimes. So you literally can put an order in today and it's pretty much tomorrow or the next day. So I have to say, whatever they're doing out there, they're doing a fantastic job and their products. So Marco, just explain, we've got some of your products here, and just say tonight, remember we've got some hats, and they've even got a pot of honey they're going to give to one lucky person. But Marco, we use these products a lot here at Stallion AI Services, and you've got an array of products like the Equipure, which obviously we're going to talk about a bit later. You've got the Botucrio as well, haven't you? And you've been doing a lot of work on this. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's but you've got an array of extenders, and we use these on some of our extenders. So I must admit, I always find that the Boto Gold is I suppose it all depends on the stallion, I presume. Is that right?
Depends on the stallions. Yes. We prefer ours to start with gold because gold has everything. If you have a stallion that needs more cholesterol or more casein, but sometimes Botucrio Gold is the best one for 70% of the stallions, 80%. And they will have two other ones, the special, that's good for 20% of the stallions. And the other one, that the red one, this one, this is a Boto Turbo. Is just for special stand that's a low motility for fresh semen, just to increase the motility. It's not the perfect one to use for cool semen because it has some motility stimulator in there, but it's good for stallions with low motility of talking about fresh insemination, not to cool or to freeze. But I like I prefer to start with Botucrio Gold because cholesterol and casein they are good things to protect the sperm against everything.
What's this one? Special. I like all your names. Turbo, Gold, Special.
special is a generation before gold. That's
All right.
has only cholesterol. Down to have gold, that's cholesterol and casein. Because
Ah, right. Yeah,
because
yeah,
because INHA 96 was considered the best one of the world. You know that, no? Why? Because INHA 96 has casein.
yeah.
Then both the
Ah, right.
semi-gold and both semi-gold is we decided to put casein, but it was hard to have the casein powder.
Yeah.
But the both semi-gold has the same, almost the same casein levels that has INHA 96 plus
Yeah.
cholesterol.
Good.
But
And
in 96 is also, but they have another system how they use the milk and everything. So
yeah,
But the
that's not
casein
only
is
the casein.
yeah. And you do obviously lots of other products. You do something called a sperm filter that we have in our cupboard, and this is obviously to separate if you're not centrifuging, if that's correct as well. So those are the obviously the Boto Creo range, and that's Nidacom, and we thank you Nidacom for sponsoring tonight. But there's obviously a lot of other extenders we're going to go through now as well. But no, really appreciate being with us tonight. Before we go any further, it's we have a bit of a discussion. So let's have a look at some seamen on the slides here. Should we? Have we got some there, Pam? We can have a look. Just so you know, in a month's time, I know we spoke about it. We're not going to go too much into semen motility tonight and how we analyze semen. That's something we're saving for. And that's a whole nother webinar, how we actually look at semen under a microscope, what it looks like, the amount we put on, because some people might put 20 microliters on, some might put 10 microliters on. And it's important that these tiny, fine adjustments can make all the difference. We'll have a quick look at this one here. We get a cover slide. We pop that on. Oh, you see that? Yeah. There we go. So we can sew that up there. This is this. Oh, so this is the Stallion we looked at before with. So this Stallion doesn't have a fertility issue, but we're going to go through all the ways that we can actually improve semen quality if it didn't.
and Tulis,
Now,
this semen is already diluted, no?
Sorry?
The semen is already diluted with
Yeah.
extended. It's not fresh. That's another important point, you know. Some stallion you cannot evaluate the fresh one before to include the extended because change a lot, no? Most of them.
That's right. So the dilution. So
The
really,
first
when you
thing-
get, I think it's important that you dilute the semen out quickly because you're right. Some stallions they need to be in that extender fairly quickly. So when you get your semen, a lot of, I know in England, not so many centrifuge, but as we were explaining before, the stallion ejaculates in different fractions. And it can, and I can't tell you how important this is if you're listening, centrifugation can be night and day to certain stallions in the quality of them, especially for 24, 48 hours later if it's chilled. And obviously for frozen semen, we've got to obviously centrifuge. A centrifuge consists of literally, and just we like these ones that spin out when the rotor. So when the semen spins, it all sits at pellet at the other end. And these can spin very, obviously up to sort of 2,000 or 3,000 G. We tend to only spin chilled semen. Well, let's put it to you, to Marco and Bart. But we tend to spin our semen for chilled semen round about the sort of the 500-600 G. We'll come away from this centrifuge because it might be a bit noisy. Bart, what do you tend to spin your if you're sending it out chilled? How fast would you be spinning it?
It depends if I use a glass with a round bottle or a tube with a small thing. Then I use a cushion, and then I do only for 10 minutes and go to 1000 G or 1500 G.
Yeah,
I have a shorter time. The most people, so I think you also do 20 minutes. I only use 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. So we actually do it at about 550 G for 10 minutes for chilled. And then for frozen, we'll talk about that in a minute. We do that a lot longer. So with the cushion you were talking about, and this will help certain stallions. It's called OptiPrep. Can you pass me those from over there, Pam? We can take this solution up, and we can put a variance of down here from sometimes 0 point, I think, is it 2 or 3 that you use, Bart? And we're going to put a bit more on this one. And if you can see here, and this is the cushion that we're talking about. So this means when we're spinning those stallions that have got slightly, just even if they're not subfertile, really just to get a better recovery, you can spin onto a cushion rather than on the bottom of the centrifuge tube. So can we see that there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marco, do you use cushions at all?
Yes, I use cushion for the good ones, not for subfertile, because the subfertile, they have low motility. It's very easy to centrifuge and to have everything.
Yeah.
If I have a very good stallion, that's hard to have all the sperm. To increase the recovery rate, I use the cushion. For some stallions, the cushion is good also, but sometimes I don't increase too much the speed with the subfertile stallion, because sometimes even with cushion is too much. But when you talk about the subfertile stallion, you have to think different than a normal stallion. It's a normal stallion with a very good semen. To increase the recovery rate, I use cushion always. But in a high speed, 1,000 30 minutes, that's okay. But if I have a subfertile stallion, sometimes it's too much. Then I have to look for the best way to centrifuge.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And there are different cushions out there. So Minitube, we sell all their Minitube products. They do their own cushion. OptiPrep is another cushion, and IMV do a cushion as well. So there's a whole array of cushions from different suppliers out there, and a cushion says exactly what it's on the tin. It is a cushion that the semen sits on. You can imagine we're spinning this down at 1,000 times the force of gravity. It's getting crushed at the bottom of this test tube, and then we're expecting it to swim around again. So the cushion stops that crushing effect and can really help. We've got a question.
Do you always use centrifuge a cushion in the centrifuge?
We don't always, for freezing, yes, because we're spinning a lot. The question was, do we always use a cushion for centrifuging? And the answer is no, we don't always. But we do for all frozen semen, and we do for some stallions that don't like, as Marco was saying, some don't mind being centrifuged, and some are more fragile. And the fragile ones, we find if we use the cushion, it just protects them that little bit more. So that's the difference we use them. Is there another question, Faye?
Yes, Jackie Ward said, if a stallion is subfertile, could that be hereditary? And if so, is it the case that it could be passed down from generation?
Jackie, that's a really good, we get asked this question a lot. I'm actually going to cover this in the PowerPoint presentation. So the question was, can stallion subfertility be passed down? Now, I think, without looking at the presentation, I can't really remember. There's about 6 candidate genes that are linked to subfertility. And obviously, if those genes get passed down, in theory, there is a risk. But we've seen some sort of subfertile stallions, we've seen their offspring, and their offspring have had very good semen. So it's quite often how dominant that stallion is and have they got those genes in there. And also on the mare side, obviously that's going to have a dominant effect. So yes, I think it does with some stallions. Bart, have you got any answers on this one? Do you think a subfertile stallion will pass those subfertility issues down to its offspring, or do you think that varies from stallion to stallion?
No, I think it's even the stallion line. If you have a stallion line with really good fertility, they will almost have the offsprings with good fertility. And if you have some with bad, it's almost, the children are most all the same. So I think it's in each line you can find, okay, it's crossing, and then maybe sometimes it gets better because the mom line is better.
Yeah.
But at the end, they are quite similar, the stallion and the offsprings.
Yeah. So we have seen that, and obviously we're going to do all about semen assessment, and we've got Desiree who's been collecting and analysing semen for many, many years. She's going to be joining us on this next webinar in a month's time. She's got so much knowledge on semen assessment, so we're going to go through all that side of it in a month's time as well. So see you then, Desiree. So don't leave us. Right.
Yeah, Juan Samper said again, semen with too many dead, abnormal, immotile sperm are difficult to centrifuge because of the risk of causing a lot of agglutination.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, agglutination is always, especially when we're trying to, agglutination is where we have the sticking of sperm cells together. And yes, it can cause problems. We have big issues, obviously, when we're sexing semen with agglutination. And we find some stallions have more agglutination than others. Yes, that can be an issue, but we find sometimes diluting them out quite a lot can actually help that. So we talked about cushions, and now we're going to talk about gradients. Now, I think, Bart, you do your gradient slightly differently, and Marco, you might do it differently from me. But I think the gradient, I've been using gradients for years. And just to explain about gradients, let's go to this whiteboard. Let's come over here. So, you'll have to excuse, I have not got my art degree, so you'll have to excuse me for I'll have to move these sperm cells off here. But with the cushion, with the gradients, we've got, well, that's not a good start, is it? You have to forgive me for that. Yeah. Right, so we've got our test tube here, and it comes down to a V here. And with a cushion, we put it down the bottom, the semen sits on it. And now what we're going to talk about is a gradient, and this is where the semen pass through it. So if we get sperm cells with a head and a mid-piece and a tail, and say it's got a swelling here or a swelling somewhere else, and this cushion, I always imagine if you're in the sea and you wear a rubber ring or a floating device and you jump in, you're going to float. So the design for this is have all our sperm cells in here, and we spin it round, usually anything from 200 to 300 G. And the good sperm cells, the ones that are perfectly normal, will actually pass through this, and all the good ones will be down here. All the ones that are abnormal, like this, will sit here in this gradient. So we're going to talk about gradients now, because it really can be night and day between certain stallions, how good they are. And it's the amount of sperm cells you put in here can see how well this can do. Now, in a 15 mil falcon tube, I know it says in the literature, I think a maximum of 300. I must admit, we go up to 500. But if you go much higher, what happens is all your dead sperm cells sit here, and the other ones find it very difficult to go through. So it is all about the dilution that you have here. And we tend to put a maximum of 500 million, and we have about 3 mils, of Equipure that we sit there. You can do it in 50 mils. We used to do it in 50 mil tubes a lot, but now we find it much, much better at 15. But we'll come over here, we'll show you how this works.
Thomas, do you remove all of the cushion as well? Message from Bruno Radio.
No, we don't. We'll show you how that works. Hi, Bruno. I hope you're enjoying the webinar. Right. So we get our cushion. I know, Bart, you do something slightly differently than ours. I think you pour it in a different way. This is just the way that we do it. So we get our sample. This is our cushion, Equipure. Hey, Nidacom, you're getting your money's worth tonight, I think, on your sponsorship. Right, but I'm not just saying this is the product we use all the time for this, and it is honestly on some stand. I know it's more technically difficult to do, but it works brilliantly on some of these subfertile stallions. We've got a stallion at the moment. We could no way can we freeze it, and Pam, it's freezing really well going through this now, isn't it? Well. And honestly, there's no way we can get it to freeze without going through this. So all we do, it depends whether I've got a steady hand now, and it's got to be done very, very slowly. This. Let's see if I can do it slow enough. And you can just, because it will mix with the semen, and you can start to see the gradient come up now. And you can always tell whether you've done a good job, because it will be cloudy if you get it mixed. Don't zoom in too close, but Etienne, because they might be able to see if it's cloudy or not. And the more you put in, you go a little bit faster. And we tend to put, I say, 3 mils over a maximum of 500 million. But you do it slightly. Do you do it slightly differently when you put your cushion? I mean, your gradients.
Yeah, but I make the most of the time in a 50 ml tube, and then I put 1
billion.
billion 500
Yeah.
on 6 or 9 ml. So it's the same like you do,
Yeah.
but in bigger amount. And I let the gradient run through. So I have my cushion or my semen inside first, and then I have it inside, and then I let it come very careful together. And then if it's together, I let the gradient run down by himself.
Yeah, I don't think I've got a steady enough hand to do it on here, but yeah, maybe I've got.
And then,
oh, there it is. Yeah, that's happening now. Yeah, it's working. Yeah. Can you see it, Bart?
yeah, I can see.
Am I doing a good enough job?
I hope. You can see it the same like you. If it's mixing here, you are not good. If it's a good line, if it's a good line, it's super.
So.
Multitasking.
Well, yeah. Oh shit! I went a bit fast. Sorry, I shouldn't have sworn there. I went a bit too fast, and you can see it mix up. I mean, we don't use this particular method, but I think it's all down to what you use. You can see how clear that one is, and it's just down to put. It's not too bad the difference. So I think it's down to personal preference. I must admit, we used to use 50 mils, but I must admit I prefer using the 15. I know you get through a lot more, but we find it just separates quite easy. Which one we got here, Pam, first? So here's one which just finished.
I have a different way to do that.
Oh, cool. Right, bring it on, Marco. How do we do it?
I just used to put firstly the Ecupure, then the seam in the top using a plastic parcel pipette. I think it's much easier for the vets. You don't need to have a spinal cord needle, and you can just put straight the seam. The first thing you put the Ecupure, then you put in the top the seam very slowly to the wall of the tube using 50 ml. I prefer to use 50 ml, and I prefer also to concentrate as Barf is doing. I prefer to concentrate before 1-2 billion. Plus, before you used to put, yes.
Is this what you had? Is that the one?
Yes, and put the seam through the wall of the tube.
Yeah. Now, I must admit, because I was always doing
because I like to do the way that people is gonna do less mistakes, because with the cushion it's terrible. They lost a lot with but with the it's like this, just go. You touch the wall.
Yeah, touching the wall. Yeah.
Touch the wall, and you're going to open channel, touching the wall. I have a movie. If you want to take a look, in the internet is available. How to?
You've got plenty of movies, Marco. I'm just slightly worried which ones they are, but yeah.
Okay. It's okay, but you don't need to use a spinal cord and a spinal cord needle. And just go. But so, I used to concentrate before 2 billions in 5 mLs or 6 mLs of semen or extender. I centrifuge before, resuspend in skim milk extender. Then I put 1-to-1 with Ecupure, then I centrifuge.
There you go. Okay, we have to see whose is the winner tonight.
I think I'm the winner.
I don't know. It's pretty good, yeah.
It's almost the same, no?
I think the one that
that's the most important. You have different ways to have a good result. That is depends on. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's down to personal preference. I must admit, I always used to use the 50 mils. I have to admit, for years. It's just when Dixon Varner said, go back and just try the 15. And I have to admit, I went back to use the 50. We just find that the results, it's a lot more work, I admit. But we just found that we've just got a better band. This is just finished now, just to show you. But I think, again, it's quite good to get people's difference of views on this. We all do things slightly differently. So this one's we've just finished now, and I think it's all. Can you bring them over for us? So I always quite like. I mean, light isn't strong light. You obviously don't want to be shining too long on semen, but if we shine on here, we can straight away pick out. Look how nice that is here. So the good semen is here. the bad semen is here, and this is our and how do you take this out, Bart? Do you take off the top, or do you just take off the bottom at the bottom?
No, I take off the top.
You take off the top, yeah.
Yeah. But
And
you have to be careful.
we actually go in and actually just do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I think it's down to personal preference. Or can you get us another one of those and we'll do it Bart's way?
Yeah.
And or what you're saying, Bart, is you just take off this top bit and then just leave the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're just
With the water pump. Huh?
With the what?
The water. So with underdrag pressure.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Underwater. Let's do that then, Pam. We're gonna do it Bart's way. So what Bart's talking about is doing under pressure. So we put this on here. Can you see it? So we put this on here. We switch it on. So you do it through this, yeah, Bart, like this.
Exactly.
So we just suck it off. Oh, sorry. Can you see that there?
Oops. Be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
How close do you go?
Yeah,
And that's why I have the 50 ml tube, so then
Yeah.
I can.
No,
I
that works
can.
well. Yeah. So that works
Yeah,
well.
but if I have the 50, I can go by side and not only on the top. So then it's more easy.
I prefer also to go straight to the bottom to aspirate, like you.
Thank you, Marco.
I prefer, because people is scared about to mix a little bit of equipment. There is no problem. It's not toxic.
Yeah.
And then I prefer go straight and aspirate from the bottle also.
But I quite like that, Bart, actually. I haven't tried it that way. So I think, but I like to normally go straight in. We can take the last bit off and there you have it. Pure, good sperm cells. So we did, so that's, and then you just obviously resuspend that with an extender. I'm just conscious of the time. And then you can resuspend. And that way, honestly, for freezing, chilling, it is more technically difficult, I know, but we're only at the end of a phone. I'm sure Marco's at the end of a phone, so is Bart, so am I. So please, if you're not too sure, give us a call and we can talk you through it. What was the other one we did?
That was the cushion.
The cushion is the same. So can you get us another syringe on that one? So this was with a cushion that we did before. So this, we should see the semen sitting on top. So we can see the band there. So we can see our cushion and the band of semen. And there's various ways of taking it off. I find if you go in, sometimes, sorry, you're going to have to come behind me, Etienne. Can you I'll hold it up to the light. Can you see that or not? Tell me when you're ready.
I'm good.
Yes, it's possible to see it.
You can see it or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there is some point that's important in there. You are using a yellow extender. If you use a white one, it's going to be very, very difficult to see.
You're absolutely
that's why you did the red one, the red cushion.
And you're right. We have to admit, we can talk about. Sorry, Pam. Sorry, can I give you that? So
I think you enjoyed the red one. The one that was going to be available in Europe next month, I think. Depends. Yes.
So
beautiful.
So
it's beautiful.
This is really cool, and this is how we freeze the semen. So that's how we take it off. And I agree. We tend to use obviously different extenders. We use INRA quite a bit. So there's an array of different extenders you can use. I find that the mini tube one is very clear. So if people are trying this for the first time, they have a very clear extender which you can really see. You can really see it. They also, mini tube, have their own freezing extender as well. We also have our own freezing extender. Me and Mark are always fighting for who we think's got the best extender out there. And yeah, no, I can't take it away. The Boto Creo is very, very good. I think we're joint winners, hopefully, on this one, Marco. Yeah, but we have a very good freezing, and this is the one thing I think makes us as a freezing centre really stand out on our research. And we're just doing a PhD project on this to try and make it even better. There's other ones out there. There's the INRA Freeze, which obviously works very, very well. And Minitube have a whole collection of ones that you can get from select breeders. I think we're doing this, and now they sell SBS and Minitube sell their products. So they have a whole range of different extenders. And and then you've got Spur Vital, Marika. And Marika, I'd say, and Spur Vital, they're actually sponsoring our next course. So we thank you for sponsoring it. And so we're going to be talking about the extenders an awful lot more and their extenders on the next one. INRA, I think, is one of the most well-known extenders all over the world. This is a milk-based extender. Quite often extenders you see, they're either milk-based or egg-based, and that's the proteins that the semen quite often needs to protect them. So you've got all the Spur Vital have got a range of them, and then obviously you've got the Boto ones we talked about earlier as well, and there's Hipex as well, which I know, Bart, you use the Hipex quite a bit. This is a powdered form. And I think, am I right, Bart? This one is quite good for non-centrifuging. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's thought especially made for a lot of people who are not centrifugal and just for chilled or shipping fresh semen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
and that's why you develop the red, because it doesn't matter the kind of extender they use, then you can use the red cushion. You see the column easily. I think you enjoy.
Yeah, I'll give it a go, Marco.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And just remember, you know, I think one of the messages when you've got the subfertile stallion, and it doesn't have to be subfertile, the stallion that will not chill very well, the one that will not travel. Now there is so much we can do with those stallions. Don't just rely on one particular extender. Because just because it doesn't work in this extender, it might work in this extender, or it might work in this extender. And Pam, come on here, Pam. I think Pam's one of our lab technicians, and we do all these extender tests. And what do we do? What extender tests how many extenders do we tend to do on each stallion?
About 6 extenders, the regular ones that we know we're going to get hold of quite easily. And we run that at the beginning of every breeding season for every stallion that comes on centre. And
are they centrifuge, non-centrifuge?
Both. So we leave half uncentrifuge and then centrifuge the other half.
And I think this is really important. Every stallion, I know it means you've got to buy more extenders, but every stallion is slightly different. It's like the Boto range. Some will work on some and some won't work on others. But we test it, all 6 different extenders. We centrifuge half, we leave half. And what would you say? 80% of stallions look better after centrifuging.
Yeah.
Everything, not everything, but nearly everyone looks better. Do you find, Bart or Marco, I'll be quite interested in your thoughts. Have you seen stallions that were good one year with one extender, and then the following year they were better with a different extender?
Yeah.
I know.
Even in the season, I have this problem. If you have a young
right.
stallion, I always test for freezing, for example, which extender. I have the SIS for DMF, and I have Spare Vital, for example, with glycerol for freezing. And you make a test the first times if they are young, they prefer maybe the extender with the glycerol, and after half a year they go down, and then they start to be better with the DMF. So you have always to look, what do your stallion want? And for sure they change. Yeah, for sure.
You're right. I've seen this so many, and I never thought it would be. And I have to admit, you know, each year we used to say, oh, it was good in INRA, it was good in Spur Vital that year, we carry on. But no, I'm glad you said that, because we haven't talked about this before. I see that even mid-season, we've had to change the extender. We can't wonder why. There's a few things that we're going to talk about on stallions, and there's a new product we're going to be bringing out very shortly, really hot off the press, and hopefully we'll be telling you that in a few weeks time. The other thing we're just doing trials on now, and I don't know whether you tried this, but we're just having success. This is hot off the press. We haven't spoken to you. Is we do a 2-step dilution on some of these stallions. So what we will do is we will get a extender with no glycerol in it at all, or no cryoprotectant, and we actually we fill this up with our freezing extender, and what we do is we just drip feed it in. We drip feed it in. We switch this on. Hopefully, it's going to work. Whoa! Slow down. And we found with some stallions, when we do this, a slow drip feed, it can really help. The problem is you need an extender with no freezing cryoprotectant, and you need one with double the amount. But that's something we're just doing a bit more recently, is a 2-step dilution or a slow step on some of these stallions that are more tricky to freeze. That's what I love about this so much. Some stallions are dead easy. Some you really have to think outside the box to get them to freeze, be it through cushions, be it through different freezing media, be it different way of handling, whether you put extender in the bottle. But have you ever tried this method, Bart or Marco?
I would like to talk about Tullis, I'd like to talk about centrifugation firstly, because people think that centrifugation before cooling is better for all of them. It's not better for all of them. It's important to know that you have to compare, because people, oh no, the first thing that they do is just remove the seminal plasma. For some of them, it's worse to centrifuge. Now that's an important point, important thing to think, talk about the cooling semen, okay? Yeah. Cooling semen. But I never tried this because...
Yeah. Hey, have I taught something?
Have I taught you for some stallions?
Have I taught you something new tonight, Marco?
Okay, I'm learning. I'm a professor. I need to learn to teach, you know. I'm always learning.
We're always learning.
Always learning. It's important for a professor to learn, to have new things to teach, you know. I'm always learning. I really enjoy it.
And Bart, have you seen this?
I also never see this. No, but it looks good. I tried to make something, not to make this, but I try to do very slowly for freezing with some extenders. But this system, it looks good. Yeah. So I never seen. Yeah, good, great.
Right. Okay. I think we could go on all night, and I don't want to lose all our people. So, Rachel, can you play that next video? And we're going to go straight upstairs, and in 1 minute, I'm going to see you in the other room, and we're going to do a PowerPoint presentation and pick the winner and everything else. So, thanks very much, Pam, and for setting all this up and everything else. So, Rachel, if you can play that video, please. Tell me when it's on.
But trees, when they grow,
Thanks. Thank you.
if you put 2 concrete walls, and they can be very thick, and there's a tree in between those 2 walls. When they get big enough, it's going to move those walls. My name is Paul Holmes. I'm a scientist and the founder of Nidacon. I started out as an embryologist in the late 70s. My passion has always been in reproduction. We have a way of sorting sperm. The product is called Pure Sperm. It takes out all the old sperm, it takes out all the young ones, and just the mature ones are centrifuged into the bottom. In nature, this happens in the female body.
Can you hear me there, Rachel? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen now. Let's see if I can do this, work this right. Hopefully. So first thing of all, we talked about what is subfertility, what is the subfertile stallion. We're going to look at some of the characteristics shown, some of the causes and contributing factors, management and resolution, and obviously some of the conclusion as well. I've just got to thank tonight, obviously, our Nidacom, our sponsors. You know, without them, and we've still got over 250 people watching tonight, which is brilliant. So thank you for everybody sticking with it. It's going to be another half an hour, but we've got some great case studies coming up. And I can't even see what my next slide is, so I'm not even going to be able to guess what the next thing's coming up either. So, but Nidacom, thank you for sponsoring tonight with this. I just want to tell you a bit about our webinars that we've run. And you know, so far we've put on, this is our 9th webinar. We've been doing, obviously, we were fortnightly, now we're every month. We've done 8 episodes, 43 different countries, and over 6,000 people. So if you are wanting to sponsor one of these webinars, please give us a shout. Hopefully, Marco, you've enjoyed it tonight, and Nidacom, you've enjoyed it. So we're really reaching out to a lot of people, roughly sometimes over 800 people per episode. And these are showing you on here the amount of people and the countries that have been tuning in. So the last one we did on the 13th, we had over 30 different countries tuning into this, and over 400 people registered. Just showing the power of social media. One of our things just recently is, it's hit 36 million views now on Channel 4. So with all the lockdown and everything, it's great to be using these webinars as a pool, as another way of reaching out to people. But tonight's all about the subfertile stallion, and this was a paper written. And subfertility is any reduced form of subfertility or non-compliance of breeding targets really is leading to is what subfertility is about. So it's not just about semen; it's about can he breed, as we were speaking about before. If really you want these mares getting in foal being covered or naturally equaling or exceeding at least 50% of your mares, and at the end of the season you want at least 80% of them in foal, and the foaling rates ideally you want to exceed at least 70%. Otherwise, starting to fall below that, you could sort of put the stallions in a lower range of fertility. So, as I said before, subfertility does not necessarily mean poor quality semen. It can be down to poor libido, inability to mount, and failure to ejaculation or testicular size is some of the issues. We looked at these calipers before, and you can soon get an idea of a range of how good the stallions, what he should be producing, in really the size of the testicles. The testicles is the engine house of the stallion, and this really can tell you roughly, and by this calculation, by measuring the length, the width, the height, you can roughly work out how many sperm cells a stallion should be producing each day by it. But I think we all agreed, Marco, and I think Bart, you were saying one of the best ways to measure this is really through ultrasound. I know you do it with testicle, but ultrasound, do you agree ultrasound is the better way than using the calipers to measure them?
Sure.
I think sometimes it's hard for people that start, especially to see the width, but to see the height and the length is more difficult, But
Yeah.
you have to learn how to do, because people make some mistakes with the ultrasound. It's very important to learn how to do, to practice a lot before you start, because 1 centimeter can make a big difference on the production and everything, and then your calculation is not going to work if you don't measure in the right way by ultrasound. But it's very important to learn how to measure, especially the length.
And
but I enjoy. I used to do, but it's important to know how to do.
And there's quite a lot of people from the thoroughbred industry who watch these webinars as well, and they're quite interested. Obviously, they've got to only live cover a mare. They can't do AI, so you can soon work out what their daily sperm output is, billions of sperm per day, and by working out that, you can give a rough idea how many mares a day a stallion can cover. So obviously this paper was produced, and it says, if it's 3 to 4 billion sperm cells, it may be 2, but occasionally 3. And if it's producing, the average stallion quite often gives you between 7 and 10 billion. He could even, if it's good quality, I mean, that's a lot of mares each day, I have to admit. And I'm glad we can do the AI side, because it takes the pressure off us quite a bit. So, but that was a paper that was written. So the parameters of semen that we need to look for, the average stallion, and again, different breeds will have different amounts. It's anything from 40 to 50 mils. I'm not too concerned about the amount volume-wise they give us, because if a stallion gives us 10 mils or 5 mils, if it's really concentrated, that's just as nice. And then the average stallion can give you between 150 to 300 million sperm per mil. But again, that can be massively, but ideally we want it over 50% motility, and the average stallion's between 7 and 10 billion sperm cells in a collection. On a poor quality semen, anything below 100 million sperm cells, but again, it all comes down to volume and progressive motility. If it's getting below 35%, obviously we're starting getting concerns, and we really want the viability above 45%. And we do find with some stallions, we see here, I don't know where this video will play, Yeah, so obviously you've got some semen moving fairly well here, but there's a lot of dead in the background here. But you see this ejaculate here, straight away you can see by the color of it, it's 125 mils, but this has got a lot of seminal fluids, and this can have an issue with the semen quality. And as Marco was talking before about the gel production, obviously this can contaminate your samples as well. So I have to admit, we always do the filter as in. The ejaculate can come in all different formats. I don't know, Bart, if it's quite difficult sometimes, but if you do have a raw ejaculate, I think just by looking at that sample, you can tell to a certain degree straight away what the concentration is, roughly how much you got in there. Do you find that, Bart?
Yes, you can. I think so.
Just by the color? Yeah.
Just by the color, and if you shake a little bit, then you see the consistency, and then yeah, for sure you can say about 200 to 300 or less 100. So the first one, I would say, if it's normal, it's about 200 to 300. The second one is less 100.
Yeah.
The third one, it's okay. Here it's written blocked, so it's really like butter. It's dark yellow. So, and the fourth, it's some urine or something inside. And the last one, I cannot see exactly.
It's blood.
Maybe some blood inside. Yeah.
It's quite sad. Well, I don't think it's sad. It's just how we do our job. It's amazing. You're dead right. You can have a look at a color, and you can straight away say, oh, that's about 150, 200 million sperm cells before you even go in a machine to look how. So that I do, and I always think, I know it's a bit weird, but the smell test is quite good. So you can smell if they've got urine contamination in that sample as well. So I think it's the color tells you an awful lot straight away. I always say to people, just look at the sample that you get before you do anything. These are just a few pictures on. We're going to do all about semen evaluation. Hopefully, Bart, you'll join me in a few weeks' time, and we're going to have Desiree with us as well. So we're going to talk about how we analyze semen. I'm just going to give you a bit of a taster. This just shows how you've got to be careful. You've got three different three different visions of semen here, and looking at the quality. And this is so important with evaluation. This was all from the same collection. This was actually even all on the same slide. So I think we're going to show you how to do this in a few weeks' time to actually analyze semen to get a really true account of how good that semen is. Because if you can't evaluate it, everything else falls down. This was actually some post-thaw semen, believe it or not. This is from a dog, though, so that we did the other day. So they are very good semen. They're quite lucky in the canine world because their semen's pretty good. So motility, and there's various ways. Again, we're going to go through this in a few weeks' time. Different mechanisms of analyzing semen and how we can look at it as well. And I've got on here about dismount samples. A lot of people use the CASA system for looking at dismount samples as they're collecting. But motility, again, we're going to go through morphology a bit more. But motility, how much, Marco, do you think motility is over morphology? Which one do you think is more important, or do you think it's both together, or do you think morphology is important at all? What do you think, Marco?
Most of times they come together. You know? If you have a semen that has a good motility, normally they have low morphological problems, lower. But I think the combination of both, you know. But normal is a package, you know. You have a semen that's good in motility, that's going to be good also with the morphological evaluation, lower level of problems. But I think that both of them, it's hard when you have a semen with good motility and low fertility. The first thing that I used to look is the morphology, and sometimes you find a stallion with a good motility and high levels of morphological problem, but normally they come together.
So I think, you know, I've seen this sometimes. It looks really good motility, but the morphology, for one reason or another, just isn't very good. And this, I think, can play a huge part in the conception rates of some. That's why we see some stallions, for some reason, they have very poor motility, but they get everything involved for one reason. But you look at their morphology, it's very good. And we've seen it on the other side. God, it looks the best semen in the world, but just gets and they're the most frustrating ones of the lot. We can look at the.
And I like the DIC to evaluate this kind of.
I'm I'm not as wealthy as you, Marco. I can't afford one of them.
Sure you can.
But these are the frustrating ones. The idiopathic subfertility, the stallion semen, where we're talking about, seems really, really good, but actually is subfertile. But there's lots of other things we can look at: the chromatin integrity, the acrosome reaction, and there's other things that we can stain these semens on. But this is much more in depth of looking into this. There's lots of causes, and one was asking the question before about the stress, and I do believe the stress has a big part. I should really highlight the stress, I think, in red, because I think it does play a big part in the subfertile stallion. We've done a lot of work with thoroughbred stallions in the past, and we don't just look down the microscope. We look how they've been housed, how they've been fed, where they're turned out, what they're even stabled next to can make a difference on that stallion. As Bart was alluding to, if a stallion can go off and compete for 1 or 2 days and come back have poor quality semen, so many factors can determine it. Now, one stallion makes no difference. So I think this is a big, big thing with subfertile stallion, and we can turn it around. Not all stallions, but we can turn it around. You know, covering fatigue, especially on the thoroughbred side, they've been sometimes having to cover 2, 3, maybe 4 mares a day, and we have to look at that. Can that stallion physically cope with that demand? There's nothing more frustrating, even in our side, in the AI side, of a stallion with low libido. It just sitting there for half an hour is the most frustrating thing. And the more frustrated you get, it goes straight down those reins, straight to that stallion. Teasing a stallion, and with Marco, we were talking about this before with the gel. We had a client before saying, "Oh, there's so much gel." I do like, if we get a stallion with gel, we use a lot of that open-ended AV, which we'll see in a minute. And I think, as I spoke before, and we use, there's lots of different filters. There's a sock filter, the disc filter, and the mini tube filter, which I find work well. And as I say, you don't use any gels, but there obviously are different lubricants out there. Be very, very careful which lubricant you use. There's some out there are very toxic to semen, even if they say they're suitable to AI. We've seen it before. So be very careful on the lube that you use if you're using lube. Washing stallions off beforehand. Again, I think this can help the semen quality. Marco, do you wash the stallions off beforehand?
Yes, always. It's very important. Avoiding to use disinfectant also now, but
Yeah.
only water.
Yeah. And Bart uses the same. Yeah.
I use, but not only water.
Yeah. But it's very important to clean the fossa, because some people, they clean the penis and they forget to clean the fossa.
Exactly.
The most important place to clean is the fossa. It's very important to know that. Some people, they clean just the penis and they forget about the fossa.
And we used did a bit of research on it, and we found it removed up to 80% of the bacterial contamination with us in the semen. Yeah.
Yes, I have a paper that I published talking about this. If you washing, not down to washing, it's amazing. Just to eliminate the bacteria, just to clean it with water, just water.
Do you say you put something else in there, Bart?
Yeah, I use one pH 0 soap, what is specially made for injuring for clinics or something like this.
So it's pH friendly. Yeah.
0.
But I think this is a must. So I think tonight there's a lot of people watching from all over the world, because we have 30 different people. Each little tip of this, because some people may never wash the stallion off straight away. You can hold up 2 bottles, a stallion that's not washed off and a stallion that is washed off, and straight away by looking at it, you can tell which is which because of the dirt and debris. So wash over every stallion. The collection, we've done a webinar on collecting. So, all I can say on the collecting side, trying to get that first collection straight away. Every failed collection you get, there's going to be a buildup of fluids, seminal fluids. If you do get a failed collection, I always say make sure you change that collection bottle over. Don't try and because you get a buildup. So frequency of coverings. I think, again, sorry, there's so many points we're talking about tonight to help these subfertile stallion, the older stallion, flush out, and flush out. I know, Bart, you amaze me, because you actually don't even look at the semen. You flush the stallion out. Is it 3 times, Bart, without looking at it or something?
3, 4 times. I throw away. Just see, oh, it's finished. Throw away. I don't even look at it.
Wow.
Just to wait, and then if they are after 4 or 5 times, then I will have a look, and then I will make my mind about and see what's going on. But the first 4 times, throw away, don't care.
Yeah, we're a bit tighter. We actually keep ours. If it looks good, we'll get on and process it because we're on a time scale, obviously. But yeah, I can. So you can see this video here is a lot of agglutination that we were talking about for sperm cells sticking together. And I've seen it in young stallions. We had one stallion, it took 2 weeks to flush him out. But generally with I find, I don't know whether Marco and Bart, you have seen it, but the older the stallion, the more flushing out sometimes they need. Do you see that?
Yeah. That's
yeah.
Yes, what's important for flushing is to stabilize the number of sperm. When we start with 50 millions, then after 3-4 collection, he's stabilizing what's going to happen during a high frequent collection. Then I prefer to do 3-4 days. If the stallion is on the rest, sexual rest, it's the first time of the year or the first time of the stallion, to really know what's going to be the real ejaculate.
Yeah. So,
yeah, but that's why I don't look the first times, because if you collect the first time, you have 20 billion. I had this last year. They get the stallion 3 years old. They say, "Oh, super, he has 15 billion." After 5 collections, he have only 6.
Yeah.
So then they count with 15 billions, and at the end, you have only 5 or 6. What is normal? So the first 1, 2, 3 collections you can forget.
Yeah. So I think you know, and I must admit, you know, we've seen some age stallions, it really makes a difference, and the older stallions sometimes, and this can be another issue, the blocked and pulley. Again, I'm not saying it's all in old stallions, but I don't know, you know, Bart, I know you've seen a few of this. This is where the stallions, where some of the semen's stored, it actually gets blocked and they can't release it, and all you do is get a clear fluid. So, but how common do you see this much, where the stallion actually gets blocked?
Not so often, but sometimes some people call me to help. Yeah, and then you see this. The most of the time, it must not be an old stallion. Most of the time, it's a stallion who produce a lot of semen.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Ones with big testicles.
And then if they are stressed or they make a break for a few weeks and they produce a lot, and then you get this problem.
Yeah. I think the other thing is something, sorry, moving on, is with the subfertile stallion is pain. And I always seem to emphasize stress and all these things, but pain, I think, is something that's not seen, not related to. And I think failure to ejaculation and failure to that side can be very much pain related. And again, you know, for some of these stallions that are older, that are retired to stud, I think this is something you really have to look at, the inability to mount or unwillingness. A bit of pain relief can soon find out whether this can be the issue. I think there's obviously the intrinsic factors. Obviously, on the subfertility is the age of the stallion. We spoke about this before. The sexually mature of the stallion is usually between the age of 5, but we find here with some of the heavy breeds, this can take quite a few years, quite a bit longer to do. So they're all different, but I think sometimes it can be an age-related thing, a maturity thing. Some of these young ones, they just need a few more years to mature. We touched on it before. Someone asked at what age does a stallion class as an old stallion, and I think Marco, you were saying you got some older ones. I think our oldest one, we had a 30 or 32 demonstrator was here when we collected off him, and his semen needed flushing out, but still okay. But testicular degeneration is like a broad term for the testicles not working so well, but that tends to kick in a bit later on. And and it's the softening of those testicles. We're talking about palpating those testicles. I think, Bart, you've got quite an old stallion that you still collect off, haven't you?
Yeah. My son do it. He's 27 and he's still collecting every second day, and he makes good pregnancy and everything. But at the other side, I have also stallions who get 16, 17, and you can see during the season, the quality of the semen goes down, the semen quantity is more poor. So yeah, it depends also a little bit of the lines. I think if the father was of the stallions was also super semen if they were young till 12, 13, and then goes down, and also the ox wheels of they go down also now. So it depends also on the line of the stallions, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And just a take-home message really for this, because obviously got a lot of people watching. If you are wanting to freeze your stallions, don't wait until they're 27. Yes, it might work, but freeze when the semen's better, when it's younger, because
for sure,
because you don't know what's around the corner. Do you think? So I should have taken this off here so you could see. So do you think rotated testicles is an issue with fertility sometimes?
It might be, yeah.
But sometimes we see, have to admit, the ones that we've seen, because sometimes I don't know where you've seen ones, sometimes they flip one way and then you come around they're one way and they just flip it back. A lot of them, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We've seen a lot of stallions that have this and the fertility doesn't change too much, but I think some breed societies, I don't think necessarily register, obviously, of the testicle.
But in my opinion, don't. I have several with mangalagas in here. They have the opposite, and it's okay. The semen is okay. I don't think that's a problem.
So it's really
talk about old stallions. One thing that's a bad sign, and when they start to decrease the size of the testicle, then the prognosis is really bad.
Yeah.
When they have good size of testicle, okay, they are going to be good. But when they start to decrease, there is nothing that you can do. That's a bad sign.
That's
the size of the testicles. That's a problem.
And you can't reverse it, can you?
No. The old ones?
Yeah, you can't reverse. Yeah.
You cannot make it, they can grow again. When they start to decrease the size. So
I put this picture on here because we've had some people send us pictures, say they've got a problem with a lump on the testicle, and 9 times out of 10 it's rotated, and they see this lump on the front, and in theory this should be facing the back. So if you see this is a rotated testicle. You can have problems where we've had one before where a burst blood vessel has happened actually in the stallion when it's been collected and actually bursts. I've seen this on a couple of stallions, and it blows very quickly up. So you can have the trauma side to obviously with stallions, and obviously the thing with stallions, you've got to make sure the penis obviously goes back up, otherwise there could be severe issues of this penis never being able to work again. So we have to make sure it's pushed up and get the inflammation down as quick as we can.
Can I make a question? Have you arthritis in UK?
Sorry?
Because arthritis virus.
Oh, EVA.
AVA, have you?
Yeah. Well, we had a case, a couple of stallions last year down in the south of the country had it. Yeah, we don't have it very much. No.
I'm following some stallions in Europe that they have fever, high fever.
Yeah.
And after the fever, wow. But the one thing that's good, because in Brazil is the most common situation that induced testicle degeneration is fever because of Babesia. Babesia is a parasite from blood. You don't have in there,
No.
But the fever is like 41, around 41. And 2 days of fever, they can destroy the sperm production, but they come back in 3 months. Some standards just stop to produce semen.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Marco said if there is a trauma, a fever to the stallion, the production of sperm is about 56 days. So you have to give it that time scale to come back, don't you? It doesn't happen overnight. So don't be worried. Well, obviously be worried, but don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. It can take 2 or 3 months to get back into
to come back. Yes.
Yeah. So it's important. I didn't mention that. So thanks for bringing this. Really important. That production of sperm cells take a while. Bart's brought this subject up quite a bit. I'm glad I put this in, Bart, for you. So he talked about fertility, and we asked the question tonight: can the fertility of a stallion be passed down? I said there was. I got it totally wrong tonight. I said there were 6. There's 37 candidate genes that are identified with the importance of stallion fertility. This is ongoing work, and there's a lot of research showing that obviously these genes out there can be passed down from stallion. I know, Bart, you've spoken about that. We see it obviously with our breeds, the inbreeding is something I could talk about all night, is the inbreeding coefficient. This is where the close lines, and we've got some breeds here that are 26% inbred. When a brother-sister mating is 25%, this is pretty bad. So these can be the other fertility issues that kick on. And we've seen the thoroughbred industry, I think here is at 12.5%. I think that's gone up by 1% now. So it's at 13.5%. This is very, very worrying for breeds when they're inbred, because it's very hard to get back up. Again, we're going to do another webinar on this because it's called the extinction vortex. These elephants that you can see behind me in certain places, inbreeding is what makes a species go extinct. So this is because it causes infertility, subfertility, the inbreeding. So, but again, it's a whole topic in its own. And this just shows you some of our species here. That the red line is 25%, and you can see all these species, how they're inbred, going right the way down through the lines, and how important it is to make sure you don't inbreed. So there are a lot of resolutions we can do, solutions to all these issues. In the thoroughbred world, they're looking more and more into using some of these technologies, not AI, but looking at assessing their semen before the season starts. And we've seen now a lot more pre-breeding examinations to determine how many mares that stallion can cover. And that straight away can tell that stud, yes, he can cover 50 mares that season, or can he cover 250 mares this season? So pre-breeding examinations, I believe, are so important, especially should be done every year. And you can have a look to see whether that stallion is getting better or worse. And obviously we can do an estimated stud book size, pre-breeding soundness examinations. And so to me, I think it's a real vital part for any stud to undertake at the beginning of the breeding season. And one thing I've always said with all these webinars, a happy horse equals happy semen. If he's stressed out, the semen quality goes downhill. So we have CCTV cameras in all the stallions, so we can have a look at them. We ideally like well ventilated housing. Ventilation, I think, plays a big part. I came over to Germany, looked how they got all the ventilations in the roofs, and even in the doors, they have cutaway parts in the doors to let the ventilation circulate around. So to me, it's thinking about the whole horse. Again, not just what goes on in the lab. It's about how the horse is doing. Marco alluded to, if they had a fever, anything's happened to 56 days, it will have an effect on its semen quality. You get all these things right, you can have really good semen quality. Libido, well, libido, I have to admit, as a stallion plays, any stallion manager, I think, has to be one of the most frustrating things. And Bart, I don't know whether if you're in the breeding shed, it's very easy to get tense yourself when you've got 20 orders coming in and a stallion is in the breeding shed for an hour.
If he don't want to do anything, put them on the side, take another stallion, and he will do.
Right. I'll have to try that one. Yes.
Let him look. It helps.
Okay, well, I've learned something from you tonight. I don't know which stallion are going to try that on. I'll be a bit worried. I can just imagine these two stallions fighting. But anyway, yeah.
No. Just put them on the side. You have to find one stallion that he will collect and not fight with the other one. But if they look one or two times at another stallion, then they start to think about it.
Brilliant. Great. Well, we're all learning from each other tonight. So
yeah.
Yes.
It works.
But I think we have to look at libido in different ways and why the stallion's got poor libido. Sometimes it can be a testosterone level. It could be just the way he's been housed and handled. Some stallions are handled with too much restraint. They're jabbed constantly like this. I think some need a non-restrictive handling. And this is the bit I enjoy. I think actually Bart most probably enjoys it well, because Bart, I know you're always big into your stallion handling. That's one thing I know you go to Mexico. I think it's Mexico, isn't it? Teaching people. Is it Mexico?
Colombia,
sorry. Yeah. Anyway, that part of the world. Across the water there. So you teach people to handle them. And it's a bit that I love seeing it, but it is quite often down to the handler a lot of the time. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure,
you can get somebody
and that's what I always try to find also in my place. I like the people you have for handling your stallions. I know them, so you have super people for this. And I try to teach my people like this, that they are kind to the stallion. The stallions have to, the stallion have to accept these people. I have had some people that I give to the stallion, or they take the stallion, and after 2 days you can see this stallion is not happy with this guy. So I change the guy, and the stallion is happy again.
Yeah.
So you have always look at the stallion to feel fine, for sure.
So it's a lot of it can be that where change locations sometimes we do outside and collecting, and there's all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
Collection frequency, obviously, how often they've been collected from, trying to make sure that they're managed in a and have a good bit of rest time. So saying we can estimate the book size, so we can actually look at the traits of the stallion semen and roughly see how many you can do each season. The inability to mount, we spoke about this, the pain, and we saw the lights, and we actually do this with some of the stallions, put them under lights, especially at this time of year. It's getting colder, and we will give them pain relief if need be. I'd rather them have pain relief than actually going through the pain during the collection and failing to ejaculate, because that gets them more pain each time you jump them on the dummy. So I'm thinking, and we actually get the backs looked at, I must admit, once or twice through the breeding season. We have the physio look at them. These horses are working not in a ridden way, but maybe in a physical way on the dummy. So they still have to be physically well in that side to perform, to collect off each time. And if they're not well looked after, obviously they're not going to perform as well. Marco, you talked about reinforced breeding. So yes, it is done. This is the reinforcement, so people don't know, for natural covering. With the thoroughbred world, they have to cover the mares naturally, but after the stallions cover the mare, you can get some of the semen out, and then you can reinforce that mare with that semen. And there has been some work doing of putting extenders in after the covering can really, really help. And we've seen this with some thoroughbred stallions this year. Putting 20 mils of extender in there, it can have huge, huge positive effects on certain stallions. But the only take-home message I'd say home with this, be careful, because what I have seen, with some thoroughbreds, they just put any old extender in. They never test the stallion with the extender.
Yes.
You should always test it. Yes, you might be lucky. You might say, yeah, that one might work. But I think you must test it with the extenders and then find out which one works. And your fertility, as you can see on this research paper down here, pregnancy results on went up 12%, 8 out of 13 stallions that bred from 1,400 mares. So it can really work on some of those subfertile stallions in the thoroughbred industry. Again, if you're concerned, just give us a call and we can go through it. We talked about this before. We put extender in the bottle, and I know Bart does it. And that's that just helps dilute that semen out, and we use this a lot with a freezing extender. This is the open-ended AV. I hope you've all had your supper, because it's a little bit graphic, this video, but this is where we've actually got a much bigger funnel now for catching the semen. But we use this on a few stallions, and I quite like it, especially you've got those ones with a lot of gel. And we've seen some stallions with really, really toxic semen. And we might do this on 5% of stallions, especially if we can't get them to breed. We've got one stallion at the moment. We've had him here for a week, and we try. And now we're doing open-ended AV. We're doing a 2-step dilution, and his semen is freezing really well. So it's a combination of these different things that we've done with that. Centrifugation, we spoke about this earlier. It's the removal of seminal plasma, and it helps improve the longevity of the quality of semen. With chilled semen, do you do this on virtually all stallions, Bart, or most of the stallions when you send out centrifuge?
Most of the shells, because I sent out, and then I collect today at 8 in the morning, and they inseminate maybe the next day in the afternoon, and then it have to go to the follicle, to the mare's stuff. That takes a lot of time. So at the end, the semen have to be already moving for 30 to 40 hours longer. So therefore, it's good to centrifugate also. Yeah.
We're going to appreciate we've got on a long time, but we've still got over 240 people watching. So we've only had for the last hour. I know people drop off, but so I'm going to just rattle through these last few strides. The OptiPrep is the cushion that we were talking about before, and we put this at the bottom. I know, Bart, sometimes you use 0.2 of a mil of OptiPrep, and that can work very well as well, can't it? So you just put a
that works very well. But for freezing now, I go up again, like you told me.
To 2 mils. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about the density gradient. This is a better drawing than my drawing on the board, I have to admit. So this just shows how it can work. You put this cushion in, and these abnormal sperm cells can't get through, but the good ones can. So it's a good way of removing it. And saying we put 500 million and up to 1 billion. I think you, Bart, you go up to 1.5 billion, I think, on a 50 mil tube, don't you?
Yeah. But then for each also, like you, for each 500 billion with 3 ml. So if I put 1 billion, I have 6 ml. If I put 9 million, 1.5, I put 9 ml.
Yeah.
Hey, Tolis, have you tried to use the Equipure for frozen towel semen?
Frozen? No.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You have to try. It's beautiful.
We'll do. No.
Yes. Increase a lot. It's for some studies, not for all of them. That's one important thing to say, You don't have anything that's good for all of them, but for some stallions, for frozen towel semen, we have fertility in Brazil from more than, I think, 30 or 40 stallions. That was really good. Talk about poor quality frozen towel semen.
No, we'll have to try that.
Yes. And then you can just 50 million sperm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, easy to do also. But the results are really good. Something that you have to try to improve.
Yeah, no, definitely worth a try. And this next video, this is an actual stallion. I took this video on Monday. And this is actually stallion. We got it here at the moment. So you can see, so it's not the best video, but you can see all the dead in the background, but actually the ones that are moving, they're actually moving okay.
Okay.
So, and this stallion, we've really struggled with the freezing. We put him through the gradients, and this is his post gradient after. So this is not a makeup. This is exactly the same stallion. We're not fudging it. So this just shows you, the difference between the two, how well gradients can work. And
how much do you lost in the gradients? Because maybe we're talking about a lot, and I know how it works, but maybe a lot of people are expecting that they start moving. But how many percent you lost from the total?
In average?
With the Equipure.
With Equipure depends. With frozen towel semen, we lost a lot because I don't know why. When is a egg yolk extended with egg yolk, the recovery rate is not more than 20%. But when there's a milk extender, it depends on the original motility. But if I have a study that 50% of motility, I'm going to recover around 50% of the sperm. But with frozen towel, it's different. If I have I start with 1 billion, I'm going to recover just 100 million, 200 millions of sperm when it has egg yolk. But for cooled semen, for fresh semen, normally we have covered the same amount of motility that we have in average.
Okay.
Yeah. And these are the sort of speeds that we tend to look at for fresh semen. And I just put this on there so people can take a picture of it or take home just the different. So the gradient, anything from 2 to 400. We actually use 300 for 30 minutes. What speed do you use for gradient, Bart?
For gradient, half an hour, 300 G.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Depends a little bit how it is, but in the middle, 300 for half an hour.
We're going to talk about insemination doses in a month's time. So we're going to go talk a bit about what we should be concentrating with. But for chilled semen, we do around about 500. Obviously, with frozen without a cushion. If you're using with a cushion, obviously you can go up to 1,000 or 1,500 G. There's lots of different extenders, and again, I keep coming back to this fact for stallion owners: try different extenders out there because the one will work. And there's some years ago we only had Kenny. We only had about 2 different extenders. Now there's a whole market out there, and so try the different ones. We put this. This was a stallion that we had in, and you know, this is what his semen was like if we didn't collect off him after about 4 or 5 days. It was all dead. And then after another collection, it would get better. And then obviously it would get better again. So the beauty about our side, if they've got a poor semen or poor libido, we can actually collect in the wintertime, freeze that semen down. The thoroughbred industry haven't got that luxury. So we can actually bank a load of semen. If we have got a problem with stallion, obviously we can use the frozen semen. Oh yeah, this video just shows that it only takes one sperm cell to get a mare in foal. Yeah, well, roses work every time. Now, I appreciate we've gone on a lot longer because we've nearly gone for 2 hours, but the last one are case studies. So I'm going to race through these a little bit because we're going to start losing people soon. So these are last case studies. So this was a stallion, a 10-year-old stallion, came with good libido, good size testicle, came to us actually in 2016, came back to us in 2018. Had really, just semen would not have a really bad post-store quality. And this was his collection. So we collected off him. You can see we had fail, fail, fail. You could say this is just flush out, but the viability just wasn't going to get anywhere. And we actually did a lot more collections than this beforehand, trying to build up. We just couldn't fit them all on here. So then we actually put it through the Nidicon. We put it through the density gradient. And you can straight away, as soon as we started to put it through the density gradient, this gray band is the viability, just started shooting up the viability. And we've noticed this on the when we did the sexing of the semen as well, that it really helps with the viable sperms. It gets rid of the morphologically abnormal ones. And so, yeah, we had a bit of a drop here, but we started to see that it worked really well. So eventually, you know, this is the post-store now, that the viability was down to about 20%. And you could say, was it a flushing out issue? We actually went back and tried it again without the EquiPure and it failed. So, but we found this was worked really well with this particular stallion, the EquiPure. So we put it through a density gradient and we got much better quality semen after day 8. And obviously it indicates regular collections alongside processing techniques can improve semen quality. Another stallion and an older stallion, good average semen quality, foals on the ground, and then unsuccessful collection attempts had low semen. It was like this in here and poor progressive. This was his collection charts, 5% motility, 5% motility, 5%. And then suddenly we were collecting 51 mils, 43 mils, 20 mils, and no semen. Mm. What do we think the problem is there? That's any. Marco, have you got or a?
I don't know. What's the history?
But then we looked at him and it was his ampullae.
Blocked.
Yeah.
Blocked. Yeah. And then they was treated with oxytocin and prostaglandin. And yeah, we carried out daily collections, really flushed him out. And then straight away, we saw this bit here where we got 62 mils of 429 million sperm and 27 mils at 1.2 billion sperm in a day. So we got 60 billion sperm in those two collections.
Tulis, did you measure the phosphatase?
Yes, we did. Yes, I think we did. Yeah, for that.
Choice low?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, because that can determine where those accessory gland fluids are coming from when you measure.
I used to do phosphatase. Yes, always.
Yeah. And then once we flushed him out, we had to keep him flushed out to do that. So yes, we are unblocked. I appreciate we've gone on a bit too long tonight, but just in conclusion, the subfertility obviously is an important issue in the breeding issue, but by identifying and examining the causes and the contributing factors, I mean, we really have to think outside the box. There are so many things, I can't tell you, that can help those subfertile stallions or any stallion improve its semen quality. So Yeah, so there's an awful lot we can do. And I love this old picture. You ever think you've got a bad job out there, you spare a thought for this guy here who's got to do some collecting off this dummy. So the only true test, I really believe at the end of the day, is the mare. So on that. So we've got a few questions I think we're going to come on to. I know it's a bit late, but should we just answer a few, Fags? I've realised you've got a bed to go to. Bart, you're even later than us. So I think you're about 10:05 now. And Marco, it's in the middle of the day for you. So
I'm fine.
so have you got a question?
Yeah. What's your experience with stallions that are chemically castrated in the past regarding semen quality recovery? Is it usual?
Don't do this. Don't do this.
Is it usual to see many round cells in the ejaculates?
I think chemical castration, some stallions it works. They come back. I don't know, but I find be very, very careful in chemical castration.
Yeah. Don't do this.
Yes.
If you want to have your stallion and you want to have some semen and you want to ride the stallion, then castrate, do epididymal freezing, and then you have about 50 to 100 doses good semen, but don't do chemical castration.
Castration, yes.
Yeah. And Gabrielle,
That's
thank you
my
very
opinion.
much, Gabrielle, for your comments. We get a lot of comments coming through now, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Juan Sampert again would like to have your opinions, please, on stallions with self-mutilation issues, causes and treatments, please.
God blimey! I think we'll have to get hold of oh God, what's her name in America? Can't think of her name. She does all that self-mutilation. She's written a lot of books on it and stuff. I'm just trying to think of her name. So self-mutilation, Marco. I mean,
I don't. I have 2 cases of self-mutilation, but self-mutilation, and one thing that we used to do is change the box where the stallion is. The stallion has to be alone and far away from other stallions because they have to see, to taste close with other stallions. They start to bite themselves, but it's sometimes it's hard to solve the problem. We are talking about Sue McDonald, no?
Sue McDonald, that's it. Yeah, Sue. Yeah, she's,
call her.
Yeah, call Sue. That's it. Yeah, Juan, just call Sue.
She's in Pennsylvania.
I mean, self-mutilation, I must admit, we get a lot of stressed out animals, and the first thing I always look for is ulcers, and just say, look, is there a stomach ulcer issue with that? Because we see it in the stable where they're biting the flanks, and that's the one thing. And that, I'm not saying every horse that self-mutilates has got ulcer problems, but I always think that's something that we have to look at. And we've got so many questions tonight. We really have, and I think what we will say is all these questions, we will get back to you all. There's like 30 or 40 questions here, and I do believe everyone who wants to get off at some point. So I think we'll have to draw it to a close. We've gone on for more than 2 hours, so I think Rachel, are you still there? Have you fallen asleep yet? Or are you still hanging on in there?
I'm here.
Can you pick a winner for us tonight for our Nidacon prize?
Indeed, I can. So randomly, it will be.
But
Heidi Taylor.
Who? Sorry?
Heidi Taylor.
Heidi Taylor. I don't know whether you're still watching.
Yeah,
but,
Heidi Taylor's still there. Hi, Heidi. If you can maybe put your hand up on the system, but you're the lucky winner.
Hey, and James Crabtree, don't go to bed yet. We're still,
Hi, James.
We've still got a bit to go. Yeah, James, you can't go yet. We still got it. But we will send us your details and we'll send out the prizes to you. Just to reiterate, a good friend of mine, Dave Footer, who's got Yorton Farm Studs, looking for a vet to come and help. Doesn't need a lot of experience on the repro. Obviously, with horses, it would be helpful. Get a hold of me. The next webinar is sponsored by Spervital. And we've got, hopefully, Bart, you helping to join us again?
Because I heard of Desiree was coming. So yeah.
Yeah. And we've got the great Desiree with us. And we haven't been, no one's seen Desiree. And please come and stay and watch it because you'll learn an awful lot about semen assessment. I know we've gone on a bit late tonight and I apologize for that, but it's all about semen assessment and optimal sperm dose. Don't forget the charity tonight is all about the Horse Trust, so please donate to that. A big thank you to our sponsors, Nidacom, and a big thank you to Faye, out there, who's answered all our questions. Oh, you're out on safari as well, by the looks of things. So a big thank you to Faye. Obviously, a huge thank you to you, Bart, for staying up this late. You are so invaluable. I mean, hopefully you do realise I get so many calls from people saying we just love listening to you. Your experience is great, and you add so much. And I can't thank you so much, Marco, for joining us tonight. We've had a huge amount of people watching tonight from all over the world. It really is. And I really appreciate you. If you want more topics, please, can we have your feedback as well? We do like your feedback. We're going to put a post on Facebook. Please, it inspires us to do more. So please let us know what else you want. So Marco, a big thank you from you all the way from Brazil, all over the world. And really just finishing off, we couldn't do this without with the British breeding. Rachel's stayed up tonight until later than she would normally, and she put all those videos together at the beginning, and she collates it all, and obviously her team, Eva and Jane and everybody behind the scenes. So big thank you to our staff, and hopefully see you all. I can see still more comments coming in from James. It's glad to see you're still there. And one lucky person is going to win. I don't know if you can see this actually. You can't really see it because of the thing. One, look at that for a nice glass sperm. Hey, so one lucky person could, well, she's won it, hasn't she? So we'll see you in a month's time, all about semen assessment and the optimal dose. But thank you so much for attending tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Tulis. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.